You ever hear an idea that just spreads like wildfire? Something that seems to jump from one person's mind to the next, almost like magic? Well, today, we are diving deep into a story that claims just that. We're talking about the incredible and, yeah, pretty controversial 100th monkey effect.
Okay, so picture this. There's this giant, invisible, cosmic eye cloud that every single one of us is connected to. And the theory goes that once enough people, a critical number, upload a new idea to that cloud, the whole system just hits sync all. And boom, everybody gets the download all at once. It is a wild, wild concept. And believe it or not, it all started with a story about some very, very clever monkeys.
So first, let's just get into the story itself. This is the legend you've probably heard, the one that kind of launched a whole movement. It all takes place on this tiny little island in Japan.
The story starts when scientists start leaving sandy sweet potatoes on a beach for the monkeys. Well, this one brilliant young monkey, her name was Emo, gets sick of eating grit and has a flash of genius. She washes the potato in a stream. Smart, right? She then teaches her mom, who teaches her friends. And for the next 6 years, this skill spreads, but really slowly. And then, one fateful morning, the 100th monkey finally learns the trick. And this right here is where it gets weird. By that evening, every single monkey in the troop is washing their potatoes. It's like they all just knew. And if that wasn't crazy enough, the idea then supposedly jumps across the ocean to monkeys on completely different islands. I mean, it's an amazing story, isn't it? It gives you chills. But where did it actually come from? This is where we got to pull back the curtain and see how a real piece of science got spun into a modern-day myth. So it turns out there are three main players in this whole saga. First, you've got the actual scientists, Kinji Imanishi and Masao Kawai. They were just writing down what they saw. Then along comes Lyle Watson, our storyteller, who really jazzed things up. And finally, you have Ken Keyes Jr., the propagandist, who took this story and turned it into a global phenomenon.
Let's start with what really happened. Back in the 1950s, Japanese scientists absolutely did see a monkey named Emo washing potatoes, and they did see that skill spread. But, and this is the key part, their research just described a really cool but slow example of animal culture. They never ever said it was instantaneous or telepathic. There was no magic. So, where did the magic come from? Well, that would be Lyle Watson. In his 1979 book, he's the one who added all the juicy parts. The sudden explosion, the psychic jump across the ocean. When people later called him out on it, he basically admitted the data wasn't there, saying, and I quote, "I had to improvise the details." He literally just made it up to make the story better. But the story didn't just stay in a book. It went mega viral thanks to Ken Keyes Jr. He grabbed Watson's myth and transformed it into this incredibly powerful symbol for social change. He said, hey, we don't need to convince everybody to want world peace. We just need a critical mass, a 100th monkey. And that desire for peace will instantly infect the entire planet. His book sold millions, and that's what really cemented this myth in our culture. So, as you can imagine, years later, some skeptics decided to go back and look at the original Japanese research papers to see if any of this amazing story was actually true. It was time for a serious reality check. The whole thing really boils down to this one question. Did that magical, explosive moment in 1958, that tipping point when every monkey just suddenly got it, did it actually happen? The answer when you look at the data is a hard no. Okay, so let's dismantle this. The idea of an instant download for the whole troop, it's pure fiction. What the data actually shows is that, yeah, the younger monkeys learned the trick, but the older monkeys, they never did. They stubbornly ate sandy potatoes until the day they died. The only reason the entire troop eventually started washing potatoes wasn't because of a psychic flash. It was because the older generation literally died off. It wasn't a magical download. It was a funeral procession. And what about the idea of magically jumping across the sea? Well, it turns out there's a much, much simpler explanation. For one, monkeys on other islands are pretty smart too. They could have just figured it out themselves. And for two, Japanese macaques are fantastic swimmers. It's way more likely that one of our potato washing pioneers just decided to go for a swim to another island. No telepathy required. All right, so the story is, scientifically speaking, completely bogus. But that brings up a much more interesting question, right? Why do we love it so much? Why does a story that is factually wrong feel so true? And here is where we land. As a scientific theory, the 100th monkey effect is a total bust, a myth.
But as a sociological metaphor, oh, it's absolutely brilliant. The story might be fake, but it accidentally illustrates a very real concept perfectly: the tipping point.
A tipping point, it's that moment of critical mass. It's the threshold, the boiling point, where something that was once small and rare suddenly triggers this massive cascading change and becomes the new normal. To really get it, let's use a bit of a retro example.
Think about the very first fax machine. If you're the only person on Earth who owns one, it's basically a very expensive paperweight, right? Useless. But once 100 people get one, it starts to become kind of useful. And then you hit a critical mass, 1 million machines, and all of a sudden it becomes essential. Everyone else is forced to get one just to stay in the loop. That's a tipping point in action. So in the end, maybe that's the real power of this whole story. The 100th monkey effect is a beautiful lie, but it's a lie that helps us understand a very real, very profound truth about how our world works. Change is slow, agonizingly slow, until all of a sudden, it isn't.